So reading from the 5th chapter, verse number 26. So for the visitors जो बाहर से आए हैं, हम भगवद गीता का 5वां अध्याय श्लोक संख्या 26 का के ऊपर चर्चा करेंगे आज. We'll be discussing verse number 26. So you can decide, it's there on the screen. स्क्रीन पे दिया गया है. कामा क्रोधा विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोध विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोध विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोध विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां. Please recite. कामक्रोधा विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् निर्वाणं ब्रह्मते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोधा विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् निर्वाणं विदितते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोधा विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोध विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं ब्रह्मते विदितात्मनां कामक्रोध विमुक्तानां यतीनां यथा चेतसाम् अभितो ब्रह्मनिर्वाणं वर्तते विदितात्मनां. Word to word meaning. Kama, from desires. Krodha, and anger. Vimuktanam, of those who are liberated. Yatinam, of the saintly persons. Yata Chetasham, who have full control over the mind. Abhita, assured in the near future. Brahmanirvanam, liberation in the Supreme. Vartate, is there. Viditatmanam, of those who are self-realized. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Those who are free from anger and all material desires and who are self-realized, self-disciplined and constantly endeavoring for perfection are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Purport. Of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation One who is in Krishna consciousness is the best of all. The Bhagavatam 4.22.39 confirms this fact as follows. Yadpada pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktya karmashayam gratitam udgratayanti santa tadvanarikmatayo yatayo apiruddha shrota ganastam aranam bhaja vasudevam. Just try to worship in devotional service Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the fruitive results of the work is so deep-rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires, despite great endeavors. A devotee of the Lord constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. Owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he always remains in trance. To cite an analogous example of this, Darshana dhyana samsparshair matsya kurma vihan gama swani apatyani pushnanti tata ham api padmaja. By vision, by meditation and by touch, only to do the fish, the tortoise and the birds maintain their offsprings. Similarly do I also, O Padmaja. The Supreme Lord is speaking to Brahma. This is the conversation. The fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in the water. Similarly, the devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from Lord's abode, can elevate himself to the abode simply by thinking of him constantly. By engagement in Krishna consciousness, he does not feel the pangs of material miseries. This state of life is called Brahma Nirvana, or the absence of material miseries due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Guru Shri Udapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwe Vrishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhangum Lagati Gram Yatrapatam Muhammad Hare Krishna. So we are meeting again. Consecutive Wednesdays. So in the last couple of verses, what are we discussing? We are discussing about liberation. Yeah, we are discussing about liberation, especially in the verse 24th and the 25th. It's mentioned how one can get liberated. Okay. So if you come back to the verse 24th, it mentions that one whose happiness is in within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually perfect mystic. He is liberated in Supreme and ultimately he attains the Supreme. So here, Krishna is speaking about the Brahma Bhuta stage. Brahma Bhuta stage, right? That is self-realized, being in self-realization. Then in the verse that you all just discussed yesterday, there was a discussion about the sadhana one should maintain to achieve liberation. Sadhana one should maintain. So over here it was mentioned, Shina Kalmasha, China Dvaida Yatatmana, Sarva Bhute Hite Ratha. So Shina Kalmasha is one who is free from all sinful activities. China Dvaida, one who is free from dualities. Okay? Yatatmana, again, speaks about self-realization. And Sarva Bhuta Hite Ratha, one who is engaged or working for the welfare of everyone. So verses 24 and 25, they talk about these things. Now when we read these verses, we may realize that it's very difficult to achieve liberation. It's not too easy, and we may also get discouraged. We may also get discouraged. In fact, if you see verse number 24, translation, Prabhupada mentions the verse ultimate. Ultimately. He mentions ultimately he attains the supreme. Ultimately makes it feel as if it's not going to come very soon. It's going to take some time. It's not going to come very soon. So, and the symptoms of liberation are rarely to be found in people. It's not so easy to be found. But the today's verse that we are discussing, verse number 26, Krishna is reassuring. He is reassuring that you can achieve it quickly. You can achieve it very quickly. So he's saying in this verse, those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection are assured of liberation in the Supreme in very near future. So he is mentioning that it can happen very soon. It may not take a lot of time. It can happen very, very soon. Like, can you scroll down to the translation? Yeah. So here he mentions those who are free from anger. Now, anger is something, if somebody speaks to me very harshly, it's natural for me to get anger. It's natural. Like if somebody calls me a dog, somebody calls me a hog or a cat, it's natural that I may get angry, provided I am not Brahma Bhuta, provided I am not self-realized. If I am self-realized, then I know very clearly that I am not this body, but I am a spirit soul. So this is very important, that it doesn't matter if somebody calls me a dog or a hog or a king or an emperor or a majesty. These designations are of no use as far as when I know that I'm not this body but a spirit soul. Actually, this is self-discipline. Over here the word is mentioned, those who are self-realized and self-disciplined. Self-discipline means the one who knows that I'm not this body but a spirit soul. The one who knows that I'm not this body but a spirit soul. Many times it may happen, that I'm self-disciplined also means that I'm not of these designations. I'm actually the servant of Krishna. I'm not this particular position. And many times it may happen that if somebody is, for example, somebody is wearing a black dress, or somebody is wearing a yellow or a white or a blue dress, and you may call out a black dress, would you really give importance? No, because you know that he is not referring to me, he is referring to my false identity. So today you may be wearing a black dress, tomorrow you may wear a blue dress, but your identity remains the same. Similarly, this body that we are wearing today, or the body that is covering our real self, which is a spirit soul, is just like a dress. It's just like a dress. It's just like a false identification which we are giving right now. We need not give it importance. We need not give it importance. So, self-discipline means one should not identify oneself with this body. One should not identify oneself with this body. That's self-discipline. And this requires some level of training. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Tinadapi Sunichena. You have to be smaller than the blade of the grass. Smaller than the smallest. Smaller than the blade of the glass. That's the teaching. And if you're smaller than the smallest, like if you see, that's our spiritual identity. What's my spiritual dimension? What's my spiritual dimension? Yeah, 1/10,000 tip of the hair. यहाँ तो hair नहीं है, but 1/10,000 tip. Your tip of the hair, उसका 1/10,000 part. कर सकते हो? नहीं कर सकते. उसको measure कर सकते हैं? नहीं कर सकते. That's why in the chapter number 2 Gita, Krishna mentions one of the characteristics of the soul is immeasurable. How can you measure 1/10,000th tip of the hair? You cannot measure. And if that's your length, if that's your breadth, if that's your dimension, then how significant are you? How significant are we? You know? How significant are we? So if an elephant may think, I'm so big, a man may think, because of its position, because of its fame, I'm so big. An ant may think, I'm so small. So all these big and small things are because of the body. It's not because of our real selves. It's not because of our of our being Brahma Bhuta, self-realized that we are not this body but spirit soul. We are not this body but spirit soul. So this is the reality. This is our spiritual dimension. And that's how a liberated soul, that's how one who is Pandita Sama Darshana, just in the 18th verse we read that, right? Just one who is learned sees everyone with equal vision. He doesn't discriminate. He doesn't discriminate basis one's position, basis one's color, basis one's race, basis one's religion. He sees everybody as equal, everybody as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And that's what self-realization is. We many times hear self-realization in many different ways. So what is self-realization? Self-realization means that you're not this body, but a spirit soul. You're not this body, but a spirit soul. So if you are smaller even than the blade of the grass, and if somebody is making you feel even more smaller, by throwing insults at you. So many times it happens, we receive insult. But then if we know that we are smaller than the blade of the grass as well, then that should not make a difference, because that's the fact. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that Tinadapi Sunichana, so we have to be smaller than the smallest. So if insult comes, let it come. What we have to do? Tolerate. What we have to do is tolerate. That's why, again, further he says, again, that tolerance also requires some level of training. Taro rapi sahi suna. So he gives the example of tree. That's the best example. Okay, that's the best example. If you see the trees, जो पेड़ होते हैं, they are the most tolerant. Abhi, in our courtyard also we have these two trees. I heard one lecture of His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj in this temple hall. He was saying that these trees which are standing in the temple hall, they don't miss even a single program of the temple. They don't even miss a single program of the temple. Like, we may sometimes not want to come for a Mangal Aarti or a Guru Puja or a Sandhya Aarti, but they are there throughout. At 365 days, seeing all the dresses of the Lord, morning and evening, and people come and do parikrama, they offer flower, sometimes charna amrita, some bathing of the Lord, water has been thrown, So, such fortunate is the life of these two trees which are there in the courtyard. But when you go out in the normal street, if you see trees, they are the most tolerant. People spit, people pass urine, people pluck flowers, people sometimes cut their branches. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that Tarodapi Sai Suna, you have to be more tolerant than a tree. Whether it's summer, whether it's winters, whether it's rainy season, it stands as it is. In the scorching heat, in the severe cold, in thunderstorms, So who can be more tolerant than a tree? Who can be more tolerant than a tree? So if we know our real position, that we are smaller than the smallest, smaller than the blade of the grass, then we don't really have to worry about this. Worry about the insults, worry about our services. Many times, as devotees in the temple, we contemplate कि क्या ये मुझे करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए. I'm not meant for this. There was a very wonderful another lecture that I was hearing. Gaurang Prabhu was mentioning when he was new in the temple in Chowpatty, there was a devotee who had joined with him, and he must be highly qualified. So they had been given service in the kitchen to make chapatis, and of course, you always feel some kind of friction with the devotees somewhere or the other. So this devotee came to Gaurang Prabhu and said that, I'm not meant to make this chapatis, I could have done much better things for you all, but you all didn't value me. You all didn't value me. So I'm going. मैं जा रहा हूँ. I'm going. After 30 years, this gentleman, he met in temple in one of the programs, Gaurang Prabhu. And he said, what are you doing these days? He's like, yeah, I got married later on. I have now my family. I practice some Krishna consciousness. So, but off late I was making chapatis. Like, why? Like, since last few years, my wife has got a severe back pain. And she's not able to make chapatis. So, I'm helping her make chapatis. So sometimes because of some difficulties or because of some menial services in the beginning, we may leave Krishna consciousness, thinking we are not meant for this position. If you even hear about the early life of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was mentioning that how in New Vrindavan he would wash pots. He would wash pots and he would milk the cows for 6 years. Same service. Same service. Just imagine. Our new Bhakta training is just for 1 year. Just imagine. Even if in the morning, if you see in the Mangalarti, if you see Nitai Prabhu, 40 years doing the same worship of the deities. Same service. Daily, aisa bhi nahi ke, can I do Gaur Nitai today? Can I do Radha Ras Pyari today? Can I get some choices? No. Same Sitaram, Lakshmana, Hanuman, same worship. Even if you go to Mayapur, that devotee, I don't know the name of the devotee who's a pujari. Same Radha Madhav. I've been going since the last 10 years now. I'm just seeing him. Whether it's Mangalarti or whether it's Guru Puja. He's only doing the service. Sometimes when in festivals we get an opportunity to charmer or fan Prabhupada, our hand pains and we look behind, Koi aane wala hai, nahi aane wala hai. Just imagine, for years and years they are doing that service. For years. Because they know they are Brahma Bhuta, they are self-realized, they know that my position is that I am a servant of Krishna. I am not 40-year-old devotee in the temple. I am a servant of Krishna. We are just 40 months in temple and we start getting some horns. And our dhoti kurtas get ironed up. Yes? Just 40 months. I'm saying 40 months as compared to 40 years. It can be any number of times. Sometimes nowadays we see it even 6 months or 1 month also. Or when they change, when we change our color from one dhoti kurta to another dhoti kurta. So it's very important that we realize that we are not this body but spirit soul. It's very, very important. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us, Tinadapi sunichena tarorapi saisuna amani na manadena kirtane sadade. Amani na manadena. You don't give honor, but you don't expect honor, but you give honor. Okay? You don't expect honor, but you give honor. Why? Because people don't know how to give honor. People don't know how to give honor. What kind of honor people can give you? Oh, my Lord, my Majesty, my honor. But that's not the real honor. The real honor is that you are servant of Krishna. That's the real honor. That's the real honor. Real honor is that you are the servant of Krishna. That's real honor. But when we get these honors, which are not real, they are false, then we are driven away. We are driven away by Maya. We are driven away by that false identification. We are not able to stay, we are not able to endeavor fully. Dhrida Nishcha. We are not able to have that because we don't have honor. We are getting that false honor, which we are accepting it. So that's very important. So self-discipline. So here it's mentioned, self-discipline and constantly endeavoring for perfection. Those who are self-disciplined and constantly endeavoring for perfection are assured of liberation. So one has to constantly endeavor. It doesn't happen overnight. All of a sudden, one fine day, I'll wake up and I'll be Brahma Bhuta, It doesn't happen. When Krishna was speaking further you will see in the chapter number 6, Krishna is telling Arjuna to control his mind. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam. And Arjuna is saying, that's not possible. I cannot. My mind is chanchalam. And what does Krishna say? Abhyas. Abhyas ena dukkantaya. You do practice. It's only by practice one can control one's mind. And then what will develop? Vairagya. Vairagya will develop. Hence, this practice is recommended. Hence, this practice is recommended. So, we see, let's come down to the purport. If you can scroll down to the purport. So, it's mention of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation. One who is Krishna conscious is the best of all. You know, one who is Krishna conscious is the best of all. Again, this is in relation, you'll see it in chapter number 6. He says, Yoginam api sarveshan madgatin antar atmanam Shaddavan bhajate yo mam samay yukta tamo mata. Of all the yogis, the one who is always thinking of me is the topmost. Is the topmost, who's always engaged in my Shaddavan bhajate yo mam. How does he bhajata? How does he do bhajan? How does he do bhajan? How does he serve? He does service with faith. Shraddha. Shaddavan. Not mechanical faith. Bola hai isliye kar raha hu. You know? या करूँगा तो प्रसाद मिलेगा. You know? मेनी टाइम जैसे होता है, यार सेवा कर लेता हूँ तो प्रसाद मिल जाएगा. You know? Many times we think like that. But yogi naam api sarveshan, the topmost yogi is the one who worships or does devotional service to the Supreme Lord out of faith, out of love, not out of a deal, not out of a barter deal. क्या रे मुझे कुछ मिलेगा इसलिए मैं सेवा कर रहा हूँ, you know, इसलिए मैं सेवा कर रहा हूँ. That's not a topmost. Krishna is saying that's the topmost yogi. So over here he's referring to the same thing of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation. All the saintly people, they are engaging in, they are striving for salvation, they are striving for liberation. But the one who is in Krishna consciousness is the best. Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, the one who is always meditating upon the Supreme Lord. And then Prabhupada gives reference of Bhagavatam, which is a wonderful verse. If we read that verse, that's another discussion. But I wouldn't read that. We just come to the translation below. So he says over here that just try to worship in devotional service Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of God. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire of fruitive activities. So what is he talking about over here? Deep-grown desires, deep-rooted. So if a tree, पेड़ है, if it's deep-rooted, it will be very difficult to come out. It's very difficult to come out. Deep-grown desires. Similarly, we also have many deep-grown desires because of our upbringing, our culture, our education, our parenting. Because of these, we have many deep-grown desires, deeply rooted desires. And like for example, if you travel across the world, you'll find many different cultures. In one culture, a man is not allowed to smile at a woman. If he smiles, she can call the cops. In another culture, it is normal to say a lie. मतलब झूठ बोलना ठीक है. And if you ask him, ऐसा क्यों बोला? Again they say, what did I say? I didn't say like that. Again, he will counter with a lie. So just imagine, because of these cultures, we have this conditioning. And this is just one life. This is just one life. But similarly, we have taken many, many lifetimes. Bahunam Janmanam. We have taken so many lifetimes. So this conditioning is very, very strong. That is what is mentioned over here. It's deep-rooted. Why is it deep-rooted? Because of many lives of conditioning. Many lives of conditioning. And we are not able to give up that conditioning. It's deep-rooted. And we have seen many, many examples of saintly people who have been practicing for thousands of years. But when they see a beautiful woman, they become agitated. Right? Like there's a nice story in the Srimad Bhagavatam about Durvasha Muni. You know Durvasha Muni, right? How many disciples he had? 50,000. 50,000? 10,000? Fine. I read 50,000. You read 10,000. Let's take my choice, 50,000. Okay. So it so happened that he once went to the palace of Amrish Maharaj. Okay, and Amrish Maharaj welcomed him nicely, and Durvasha Muni said that I have come with my 50,000 disciples. We would like to take, prasad at your place. So kindly arrange. Amrish Maharaj very happily agreed, and he said that we'll just go and take bath in the river, and when we come back, we'll take prasad. So it so happened that day, Amrish Maharaj, previous day he was fasting, and that day he was supposed to break his fast. So by the time the disciples of Durvasha Muni would come back and take prasad, the fasting period would have gone. And if you don't break the fast in that fasting period, your fast is not actually counted. We call it as parna time, right? So he was in a little bit of dilemma. He consulted his ministers, he consulted the other sages, he consulted the Lord within his heart, and then he decided that he would take a little bit of water. Because taking water is equivalent to breaking the fast as well as not breaking the fast. So Maharaj Amrish, he took a little bit of water. And Durvasha Muni, he was a mystic yogi. So he understood that Maharaj Amrish has taken water. So he became very angry. He became so angry that he wanted to kill Maharaj Amrish. And when he came back and he confronted, so Durvasha Muni plucked one hair out of his head, and from there, one demon was produced. And that demon was produced to kill Maharaj Amrish. Just imagine. Now we are hearing and we may feel, yeah, itni badi baat nahi hai. It's not such a big thing. Just imagine, you call some guest at home and you drink water before they're taking food. And for that, they want to kill you. Just imagine. So you may think it's not a very big thing, but Durvasha Muni, who is the incarnation of Shiva, Shiva is somebody who can be easily pleased and easily can get angry also, So Durvasha Muni was very, very angry. Okay, he was very, very angry. So much so that he wanted to kill one person. Just imagine you're standing in the line of prasadam और कोई बीच में आ जाए और उसके लिए आप उसको मार दो. Right? So this is the example which shows that even great sages, when they cannot control their anger, they can fall down. They can because they are not able to control their anger. And this is because of deeply rooted desires. We may be practicing Krishna consciousness very sincerely, but it takes just one situation, one moment for us to fall down from that position. Hence, we have to constantly endeavor. And endeavor till when? Till our last breath. Because our conditioning is for so many lifetimes, no? It's not just one lifetime. It's for so many lifetimes. So don't ever take Krishna consciousness lightly. Don't take things lightly. We have to be very, very serious in this affair. Like I was hearing a lecture by Mahatma Prabhu. He is a Prabhupada disciple, Mahatma Prabhu. And he was mentioning that generally brahmacharis, they say that we are not attracted to women and we don't want to get married because we are not attracted by women. So he said, that can be true. That's very nice that you're not attracted. But it just takes one. He said it just takes one. You may not be attracted by 3 billion women around the world, but it just takes one. It just takes one. So we have to be careful. He said, so you have to be careful. You have to be careful. Once Srila Prabhupada was asked that, Prabhupada, what makes you great? What makes you an acharya? What makes you great? There are so many gurus around the world. What makes you great? So Prabhupada said, I can be in a room full of naked women, but not be agitated. Hare Krishna. And that's powerful, not be agitated. Not be agitated. So that's the power of a Krishna consciousness. That's the power of a pure devotee. Similarly, we see an example of Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev, his father was Shantanu. Shantanu wanted to get married to Satyavati. So when he went with the proposal to marry Satyavati, he went to Satyavati's father. Satyavati was a daughter of a fisherman, So, and Shantanu was a king. But when he went with a proposal to her father, that I want the hand of your daughter, I want to get married to her. His father had several conditions. One of the conditions was that I cannot make my daughter get married to you because you have a son who will be inheriting the throne. Hearing this, he got very morose because Bhishma, his name was not Bhishma. What was his name? Devabrata. His name was Devabrata. So, Devabrata is an elder son and he is eligible to be the, inheriting the throne. So, Shantanu was very morose, and Devabrata, he got to know about this situation from the ministers. So what did Devabrata do? He went to this father and he asked the hand of Satyavati. And this father again made all these conditions. And knowing this, Devabrata, he took a vow that I will not get married. I'll remain a celibate for the rest of my life. And basis this vow, he got Satyavati to the palace and got her married to his father. And hearing this whole sacrifice of his son, Shantanu was very pleased and he hugged him. And he gave him a benediction that you will have Ichamrityu. And that's how he was known as Bhishma. Actually, he was given the name Bhishma by the demigods, taking this vow, it's an unreal vow, right? Nobody takes such kind of a vow. Bhishma means horrible. It means terrible. How can somebody take such a vow? It's such a terrifying vow. So he was given the name Bhishma. So Bhishma maintained celibacy for the rest of his life. And it is said that Krishna, who remains with all the young girls, still he can remain unagitated. So Bhishma said, this only Krishna can do. If I was in his situation, I would have fallen down. Just imagine, Bhishma is making this comment. Who is Bhishma? Bhishma is Mahajan. And maintaining and showing to us his entire life the way he maintained celibacy. He is making this comment that if he was in such a situation with young women, he would have had a fall down. Why fall down? Because of deeply rooted desires. Deeply rooted desires. These desires are because of our conditioning, because of our previous conditioning. They are not of just this lifetime. Hence, we should never underestimate our desires. We should never underestimate our desires. We should never underestimate. So going ahead, Prabhupada is mentioning, in the conditioned soul, desires to enjoy the fruitive results of the work is so deeply rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires despite great endeavors. But a devotee of the Lord constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. So here is a contrasting statement. Prabhupada is saying one place he's saying it's very difficult. But he's saying it's very easy. It's not so difficult for a devotee who is practicing Krishna consciousness. For the one who is practicing Krishna consciousness, it's not so difficult. It's not so difficult. And how we can see this? There is a biggest proof that we see is how Prabhupada made first-class Brahmanas all over the world. He made hippies into happies. If a person like me also, born and brought up in this city of Mumbai, if I can sit today on Vyasasana and speak something, it's by the mercy of Prabhupada and Guru and Acharya. It's not by one's own endeavor. So Prabhupada is saying that mercy is more powerful than your conditioning. Getting mercy is more powerful than your conditioning. Something that we cannot do, mercy can do. Prasad can do. Prasad doesn't mean khana. Generally हम सोचते प्रसाद मतलब सिर्फ खाना. Prasad can be the Maha Garland also. Prasad can be the instruction of the spiritual master also. Prasad can be the mercy of the devotees also. Prasad can be the food also. It can be anything. You know? So the mercy, Prabhupada is making a point over there. The mercy is more powerful than the conditioning. Something that we cannot do, mercy can do that. You know? Hence, we have to realize this, that mercy is more powerful than our conditioning. That's why we chant Hare Krishna. That's the medicine. And we see that it has made a difference. And that's the proof. You see people around over here, you can just look around yourself. You will see a difference. You know, there is a difference in the people. Because of chanting Hare Krishna. Because of chanting Hare Krishna and taking this discipline. So each one of us can become self-disciplined. Each one of us can become perfect if we constantly endeavor. Okay? So we stop here. Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Hari Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, you were very nicely explaining this, that how deep-rooted desires, they are like there for like everyone. So my question is, as you gave the positive example that somebody who is engaged in devotional service, so they can get rid of conditioning over a period of time. So we do have shining examples for this. But then we also have example of people who come to Krishna consciousness and then because of their conditioning they leave afterwards, after some years of practice, and we find that they are doing the same thing they were doing earlier. So how to understand that?
So, yeah, that's a very nice question. Many times we see devotees who are there in Krishna consciousness for few years, even a decade. Sometimes they leave, you know. So I just heard 2 days ago. Shri Radha Ras Bihari Ji ki Jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai, Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I just 2 days ago, I was having a discussion with few devotees, and they were mentioning about some senior devotees leaving the Pune temple, you know. And this was a lecture which was given by His Holiness Bhakti Vidya Purna Swami Maharaj. And some of the brahmacharis in the temple were asking about this. So, but I'm just quoting his words. He said, fine, some devotees who were there for 10 years, 15 years, they got you to Krishna consciousness and then they left. But are you still babies and wearing diapers that you don't understand? You cannot survive without them? Or you cannot realize that instead of appreciating what they did for you, you are thinking that why did they leave? You know, why did they leave? So are you just babies? You know, or are we still wearing diapers? No, we are grown up, we are matured. And we can understand that everyone comes with some kind of Sukriti also, Bhakti Sukriti also. So, and as Prabhupada says, this is a hospital, you know, and a hospital, some patients do get cured, okay, and then they help curing others, and some patients in the process of getting cured, they may leave also, okay, for better treatment or for treating others. But that shouldn't stop our sincere approach, because as Maharaj was saying, that why don't we reflect positively that the devotee who spent 15 years, 10 years in the ashram and also helped me get to this level, he did that at least, you know, rather than thinking that, oh, why did he leave? You know. So, yes, that's very true. That's why we come back to this translation. Prabhupada is mentioning that because of this deeply rooted desires, and they can attack us anytime. Unless until we are elevated in Krishna consciousness, we can get attacked by all these desires. Hence, I got a very nice instruction from a devotee. You may not be very serious, but you just hold on to the dhoti of a serious devotee. You just hold on to a dhoti. Pakad ke rakho tightly. That's enough. That's enough. And if that serious devotee also, is not serious anymore, there are many other serious devotees. So that's why Prabhupada is saying that the process of Krishna consciousness is not very difficult. But the endeavor to practice this process of Krishna consciousness is difficult. So chanting 16 rounds is not very difficult. It's just 2 hours out of 24 hours. It's just 2 hours out of 24 hours. But the endeavor to chant the 16 rounds, get up in the morning and chant, that is difficult. So the process of Krishna consciousness is not difficult. But the endeavor that we put into that is difficult. So remaining in the association of devotees may not be very difficult. But sometimes if we see some of our ideal examples not surviving, you have to endeavor to hold on to somebody else. Like I know His Grace Atul Krishna Prabhu also from Mayapur, who was here some time ago. He took initiation from ex-Prabhupada disciple. He had a fall down. Then he took initiation from a Y Prabhupada disciple. He had a fall down. But that did not, bewilder him. He was steady in his Krishna consciousness. And now if you see, people all over the world, they invite him to come and give lecture. All over the world. He's been the director of the Mayapur Institute for such a long time. All the board of examinations that we study, all the Shastric courses that we study, they are designed by him. Not an ordinary service. Not an ordinary service. So, what to speak about few devotees? Even Prabhupada disciples were there. They experienced this after Prabhupada left. Hence, it all depends upon our endeavor, our seriousness. Hope that answers the question, Prabhu. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you.